In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. This one, I have a really fun episode for us today because I get to kind of interview my first DM. I'm just going to get right to it. If you haven't joined us, you'll kind of learn what we do, and I don't feel like saying it every time because it's silly. But my guest today is a longtime friend of mine. My first, I think one of the first people I've ever even heard play Dungeons & Dragons, and you are looking at my first really long-term DM for almost the entirety of 2020. And
it was a long year.
It was a long year, and it was fun because it was like you know, as much as I hate you, I love you too, because you were the drug in the syringe for me, and you got me good. So but I know, so I remember from talking to Brian, you started a little bit before him and got him into the game, and was it Game Master?
Reverse.
Oh, it was reverse. Oh, it was reverse. That's right.
Yeah, basically, Brian was the get in loser. We're playing D&D type.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that is right. Because he said that. Because the acting background. So he brought you to Game Master games, and then that's when it first got you.
Yes. Initially, I started off going to school for theater, technical theater, acting, and stuff like that. And I've always wanted to, because I've heard about the game, and I'm like, I don't have the time. When I have to spend an entire month doing a show and spending like 14-hour days plus classes, it was just no time to do any of that until like after college.
Right.
And because I haven't done much acting in a while at the time, I was just itching for something. He was like, it's kind of like acting. I was like, oh, okay, sure. Like,
I feel like it's as close to acting as you can. In fact, I think it's a step further than acting, because like, true acting is someone puts a character in front of you and you become that character. But with this, you create the character as well. And except for those like super talented big outliers, usually the actors don't have that as much maybe as a creative drive as someone who creates the character.
I will say that the difference and everything is basically actors don't, you're right, when they get a script and everything, don't have creative control of what's going on. They can discuss it with the director, but the character's already kind of set and you kind of tweak it to how it fits you.
Yeah.
D&D, you build your own. So.
And depending on like the director, like if you mess with their or writer or whatever, if you try to ad-lib something, it could go well, or they could get super pissed at you. I'm sure, like, why would you do that? Like, this is my creation. But I do have a question for you. So other than now that you're not my, like, you kind of took a step back and I've been a player with you and I've listened to you on the podcast. Were you always the King of Chaos characters, or is this like, because I mean, you were like one of the epitome of like can I push the button? I will push the button, and I will suffer the circumstances and roll with the punches. You were like one of the best I've ever seen at it. And you have so little fear when it comes to the dangers that can happen to your character. So when you first made your character, was that it right out the gate? Were you just kind of like loose cannon, play by my own rules type of person?
You mean my first character, or just
or
characters
even just in
general?
the beginning, like those first few years of you playing, like what was it like? What were you like as a player, your characters?
Okay, when I first started and everything, I was just like, learning the rules. Oh my God, so much. What is this? This is just math. But
right. Just real quick, center yourself a little bit, move. It would be your right a little bit. Perfect. So
sorry.
No, you're good. It's fine. I see the way it's cropped.
Don't tell your wife.
Who knows? All right, so you get there. You're gonna make a character.
It's at Get Master Games when they were a brick and mortar store.
Right.
They had Adventurers League where you would go. You sit with a random bunch of people, doesn't matter how, one DM, and every session they just start over fresh. You're back at full, all the spells and everything. They had pre-generated characters and everything.
Like what Matt had. Matt, he said he started out with the pre-generated. All right, so you were given a pre-generated character.
It was basically a halfling rogue.
Okay.
Simple enough. Created the name Ander Highhill just because I was like, Ander, that's close to Andrew. And I didn't feel like being creative that night, just like my another character, which I think I've told you about, Norman Human.
No.
But we'll get to that later.
Human. All right.
But yeah, so we did this and everything, and then we sit down at the table. Brian's explained what to expect. We had this guy, Phil, who was an older DM. I don't know where he is right now, but he was a great DM for our first time. And this is when I learned to fear God. Because my friend was playing a Goliath, Barbarian, I believe.
Okay.
I was a halfling rogue, and he always showed me the throw the halfling memes. So my mindset was already on something crazy. And we went through the thing, and finally the moment was coming. Something's flying towards you. And I'm just like, okay, here we go. Me and Brian look at each other and go, and he says it. I throw the halfling.
Right.
And fucking Phil goes, are you sure? No, I did not get thrown because I was like, I don't want to die the first time I'm here.
Right.
Very tempted, but it was a good experience because learning the limitations of what you should and shouldn't do. Because I asked him later and he was like, oh no, you would have fucking just outright died because he would have like grabbed you, ripped you apart and dropped you which would have been about 20 D6's worth of damage. Why
from falling. He was going to rip you apart?
That's what he said at the time. Like it was, I don't know. Some DMs are a little more stricter, but also he knew what we were doing. It was just like, I don't want to, and that's why he said it twice. Are you sure?
Have you ever been a halfling and been thrown? Have you pulled it off thus far?
Surprisingly, no.
No?
I played Ander several different times, but I've never played it with a character big enough that actually was able to do it, sadly. But no, things got better as well, because you've seen what Kraken has done on the Reliably Chaotic podcast. Shameless promotion here.
Yeah, you're the small character, but also the stupidly strong character. What was Craig's inspiration? Oh no, there was that weird video, but did you I remember you sent me a video of the main inspiration, but was there any other driving force? Because Craig is a gem, and I always when I listen to the show, it's my favorite parts is Nicole picks out a very specific song. I've mentioned this before to you, but there's a very specific song that happens that before you even say anything, you hear this do 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 do, just kind of music start creeping in, and right away, I'm listening, I'm like, what's Craig up to now? It leads in. It'll be like that, or it'll be quiet for a while, and then I'll just hear you go hey Brian, and I just hear Brian go, yes Craig, and I know that you're about to do something stupid, but.
Oh no, I think my favorite part, because I remember when Nicole first found that track and she sent it to me and then sent the first clip of my first introduction episode.
Right.
And I was listening to it because Matt just also wanted someone else to listen to be like, okay. I was told he wanted to know where to tweak it. And I was listening to it and I'm just like, oh my God, this needs to be tweaked left or right on the soundbar and everything. But it was perfect. I was flabbergasted how really well it worked out.
Start to this, and if anyone's a little lost, so Andrew is part of the Reliably Chaotic podcast. If you've listened to my show at all in the past, since I've started it, I've gone through pretty much the whole lineup. So if you're sick of hearing from the Reliably Chaotic podcasts, this might be one of the last ones. And regardless, too bad. It's my show. I can do what I want. Because I love the podcast and I love listening to it each week. But
we appreciate our friends and fan friends. So
fan friends are real. Absolutely. So when you so now what I mean, you
inspiration for Craig.
I play with you. Yeah. So like, did you saw this video of like this crazy little guy with crazy strength and you just kind of wanted to run with it?
The idea was this, in 3.5, I believe they did a promotion because tieflings and gnomes were originally just monsters. You couldn't play them as player characters.
Okay.
And they made a funny video about this little gnome who's just looks and sounds stupid. Like basically like he didn't seem like a very smart, it was just like, and one of the things was, I'm a playable character now. And you just see the tiefling just looking at it with such disdain. And then the next video after that was literally him running up to Demogorgon and everything.
Right.
Running and just like with an accent, basically, and the guy's interviewing him, I'm a barbarian. My mom gave me this axe. And it's basically like that childlike wonder and everything. I remember watching it and laughing my ass off. And I was like, I want to build that character. And when Brian brought up the podcast to me about like, I'm like, I already know what I'm playing because I built this character 5 years ago and just haven't had a chance to play it.
Yeah, that happens. It's fun when you build a character, but you're like, I'm never going to get to play this character because I'm already playing like multiple characters. But yeah, I think there is like a fun, unassuming thing of like the small character that's accidentally super destructive, and it's a fun role to play. It
is.
But Craig's not even necessarily like dumb. He's just more naive, right? Is that more?
Yes, I will. Initially, like I thought I'd play him more dumb, but the more I like figure out the backstory and everything for him, and I know like a lot of hasn't come out yet and everything, which more will as time, I guess, be closer to where Craig was born, which we'll get to when we get to in the podcast. I'm not, don't worry.
Yeah.
But it's naivety of just like, I will say that he didn't grow up in the greatest of homes and everything. So basically his thirst for adventure was because his home was kind of one, boring, and two, just not good. So that it's kind of like that childlike wonder of just something different, something, and going out into the world and
the greater, the big picture, the greater. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I mean, there's that wonder in humanity anyway. It's why people move from their homes to like, you know, Australia or New York or wherever you may want to go. And I'm sure like it translates to a fantasy world because everyone still has that situation where like, I gotta get out of this 2-bit town or whatever. And so was that pretty much it then? Like, what was the most serious character you've played?
Serious character. I'm gonna say it was in a Curse of Strahd game, which I'm proud of this too, because I was also playing a woman named Sophia. I'm blanking on the last name. It was something very Hispanic. I was going for like a Day of the Dead thing with her.
Okay.
And it was one of the things that the entire party at the time before I joined it was just women. Like even the guys were playing women and everything. And usually with the Reliably Chaotic people who I play with, even off the podcast, when we play women, we always do our best to not do what a lot of men do in some of these games where they overly sexualize them. Oh, I flash or something like, because Brian has so many stories about like guys like that. And just
that gets a little weird. I
try to respect the characters as people too. Like in Sophia, it was a fucked up backstory, and my inspiration was Liliana from Magic of the Gathering.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's dark.
What
I started kind of a class was it?
It was a multi, and it was level 1 life cleric, level 4. We ended at level 5 just because pandemic, and like that was not a good mindset for Curse of Strahd. Not really good during a pandemic time, but level 4 wizard necromancer. So it was kind of like
Wow.
It was pretty much so she could heal you and everything. And necromancy, because technically most healing spells are necromantic and by nature. Yeah. And I kind of played it off of just like the whole craziness of making Sophia Liliana before she that tipping point before she basically went evil, made all those deals and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the character came from. It was a very
Did you know you were going to do that multi-class right away, or like you played level 1 and you were like, you know what? I think she's just going to go the wrong direction like immediately, or was it like pre-planned?
It was pre-planned because I wanted to play Liliana, right, more or less. So I was Googling this and that, and pretty much I saw like optimized things, but I was like, that doesn't make sense. Yes, with clerics and everything, you could like switch over to a different god and become a death, this and then, but it was like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something interesting where it was like the life and death where she feels she's been forsaken by the god because like in the Liliana story, something happened to someone she loved and it just tilted because she went into necromancy because the life cleric path was not getting her what she wants. And then she had to basically almost kill a family member. I pretty much stole it, but also we were recording that, so no one can sue me over this.
Listen, every character has to have some sort of inspiration off of something.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So when you what I know you brought a couple things you wanted to bring up. So usually I kind of drive it. So if there's anything specific, I do want to ask a few things about when you were DMing for the first time, but if you have anything specific you want to go over.
We can go we'll do the DM stuff and then I'll pretty much go through some of my lists. I guess I wanted,
because I was the first group that you ever like DM'd for.
You were the first, yes.
And you had Nicole kind of helping you in the background, but most of the time, mostly it was just for additional hands on the combat and stuff. What was it like? How did you feel when you? I mean, you had 2 players. 2 out of the 4 players were pretty highly experienced, and then you had me and Mike who were just total like noobs, didn't know what we were doing. And like, how did you kind of plan for that? Everyone plans differently, so
I plan to the best of my ability that a DM can plan, and any DM will attest to this, that you kind of just have a skeleton overview of what you think they're going to do.
Yeah, of course.
And 9 times out of 10, you throw that away because they're doing something else. But since we started with the Lost Mines of Phandelver,
Phandelver,
I always mess that up for some reason.
Yeah, because we did Phandalin and we were like, so I thought it was Lost Mines of Phandalin for like 8 months or something, but
but so in the end we did that one and it was a beginning module. I'm like, okay, do a beginning module, the new people knew. I know Peter and Brian's probably played it already, but because they've played it, I wanted to also, the actor in me wanting to like change it up a little bit, not just make it like, and you walk into the room, here is your loot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you successfully did that, because I remember that mansion that you brought us through. Like, I was talking to Mike the other day, and he was just saying how hilariously fun that mansion you made was, which was great. Go ahead.
Well, no, that mansion was basically based off of an old campaign that Brian was running. So it was funny to see. That was my group's home base, and that's where the inspiration came from. Brian never fleshed it out, so basically I was like, I'm going into The Sims, I'm building it, and I'm just we're going with it. We're going to explore Plan B LLC's old home, and I told Brian this, and he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. You can use my world." So I was like, I used his world, but everything that transpired in there was years later after Plan B moved away, all the adventurers, level 20. So we were in essentially the
abandoned mansion, but things have moved in and it was kind of chaotic in there.
Yeah, exactly, because red brands, and basically I still think I like the greatest thing was when Peter's character Dick Hardwood, which that was one of my characters, and I think you brought it up, Dick Hardwood, before. That he was a clerical of Thunder, and literally, like, in my old game, Carl the Lich was an NPC Brian made. The nicest Lich you will ever meet. Necrosis' staff is a dick.
Yeah.
And literally, they just left him there, Plan B, and we were horrible human beings. We were not good people.
Okay.
But they forgot him there, and I'm like, no, they're fucking meeting Carl, because I know Frederick would just leave and never tell him.
That's really funny.
He's HR.
That's hilarious. I love the whole journey you took us on through that, but I did want to the final thing I had to know is and just for the folks at home, the quick story is the Cragmaw Castle incident. And what I want to know is, and I know, so essentially what happened is we made a dumb move, and we were a little depleted, and we let the bad guys kind of escape, and without resting, we just decided to go rushing into the castle, which you made the right move. What we did was really dumb, and we 100%, they would have just went to the front of the castle and been like, hey, these guys are coming in the back, and they would have sent all the troops at you. So I just want to know, like, when you're sitting there and you're like, you realize that we triggered an entire dungeon on ourselves in one shot, like, what was the emotions you were going through? Like, what was that feeling? Because it was your first time. I feel like it was like the most chaotic thing you've had experienced as a DM in like the year and a half or like the months and months that we were playing. Okay, so I had all this stuff, homebrewed a few things just because like I was doing this whole thing with it. Yervaden, the god of madness, blah, 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 all that stuff. So basically I was throwing a few goblin clerics at them. And basically for the most part, everything was the same, like a few ghostly bugbear chiefs and nothing crazy. Yeah. Because I was trying to balance this for a bunch of people. I made the mistake, as most sometimes new DMs do, is I gave my players way too many magic items way too early, and they weren't consumables. So I was trying to balance. So I was like, okay, we'll do a few homebrews. That day, oh my God, the chat between me and my assistant DM, Nicole, was hysterical, because we're just like, they're just blowing through this. But like, there was certain points, like when one of the bugbears we changed, because I did a homebrew thing where the goblin priestess or whatever would cut herself, hurt herself, give her blood to the followers. I do remember that. And they would transform. Yeah. And pretty much that's why, like, okay, you did a spike growth and everything. Fine. You made it easier for her to cut herself and give the blood away. She was going to die very easily. I knew this, but that was the whole point of just like... She lasted a while because she dispelled my spike growth. And then, it was a lot. It was a lot that went on. I mean, I know you've openly admitted that, you know, you fudged a couple rolls because you overcompensated the compensation. Oh, no, I got rid of a few crits. There were like 4 crits that I fudged because I was like, if it was like, okay, everything's fair, and I accidentally overdid it. So I pulled back because I accidentally made it too hard. I didn't mean to, and that was, and that's the dance. But also that was my call to be like, I'm gonna fudge some rolls just to try and balance it for you guys. In the end, if you make bad rolls and everything, just that's the fates deciding, and that's how I've always played the game. Where it's just like, but me DMing is the only time I've ever lied, because when I'm a player, everyone will attest to this. Yeah, they trust my word as law because they know I will play my character to its death. Oh, I know. We have died valiantly together for the first time ever. Both. Oh, of us. Right. So Nicole got first blood. First blood for 1 and 2, first and second blood in one session. But no, I know that you won't do that. But as someone who has DM'd, there's been a couple times where I'm like, oh wait, this is a little too much, or like so. It definitely does make sense, and I'm sure you're not. I know you're not the only DM to ever do it. But the sheer volume of enemies you had to control for, I think it was 4 4-hour sessions of straight combat, because we didn't move. We hung in the hallway and just hung in the pocket and banged for hours until eventually we were like, we need to run and go, or we're definitely 100% going to die. I remember when you let those 3 goblins go, because I was like, once we stopped, because I knew what was coming. Right. After that first battle, me and Nicole sat down being like, okay, what would these guys do? So we followed the path on how fast they would have run around. Yeah. They dispersed into different rooms, bouncing from room to room, being like, they're here. Yeah, raising the alarm. And raising the alarm so slowly. And obviously I wanted to make sure everything come at once. So basically, because it takes time to
rally the troops.
Right.
Round after round, they kept coming. And also, you guys were super powerful. So at least the normal goblins, you just decimated
Yeah, I mean,
right
the normal
away.
goblins,
So
I think at that point, we were level 5. Yeah, we had to be level 5.
four or five, one of those.
I think we were 4 or 5. Might have been 5, because I think I had second level spells or something. Anyway, doesn't matter. We were hanging in there. But I think at that point in time, like most of the time, my modifier alone would kill a goblin. So yeah, a lot of the goblins were just but it still takes a lot, because if I use 2 of my attacks or 3, I think I had my short swords out at some points. If I use 3 of my attacks to house 3 goblins, that doesn't really help the fact that there's a bunch of other stuff. So it was such a fun, that was like still to this day, and I think always will be, like one of the most hilarious things that's ever happened, because it was like, I mean, like, now that I've had a character die, but it was the first time ever where I was like, oh, that's right, you can die in this game. And that's why I was like, we need to leave. We need to go now. We need to run.
That was the also other thing why I wanted to do this, because to that point, because I accidentally gave you too many, like, stronger magic items. Like, me and Brian, like, when I gave him his sword and everything.
Yeah, sword was
me and
busted.
him worked on him. It was busted, but at the time I didn't realize, being like, oh, how bad, forgetting that Brian is a monster when he's a player. So, and
he's
so
also
we
a
pulled
highly
it back.
experienced player. So
yeah.
But
doing that, it was like balancing you guys with all the like that was the problem. So I was like, okay, homebrew a few this.
Yeah.
I threw something that literally had 300 HP at you guys once. And you decimated him in 2 rounds.
I mean, it happens. It's funny how that.
Oh no, and that was me testing to be like, okay, how hard do I have to make this?
It's the dance every time.
That was the thing. So Cragmore Castle was accidentally harder than it had to be, but also I wanted you guys as players, but characters being like, oh, we might not be able to win this, because so far it was a romp and just like, kill. No, like I wanted it to at least be hard enough where it's just like, oh, and pretty much I fudged the last roll, because the final 4 creatures that were supposed to come out, I held them back 1 round because I wanted to give you guys a chance to run away.
I mean, it is possible that when they entered that room where all of the bodies were, I think we killed 48 enemies. Something like that, 48 or 49. It's possible that they would have like opened some doors to make sure we didn't circle through. They didn't see us leave out the back door. They just knew that a bunch of people.
Also, a darkness spell was dropped as well.
That's right.
I forget why.
Mike's druid cast darkness, and that's how we escaped. Yeah, so it does make sense that they would do that. But have you ever had what was your? I know you've had characters die, but what was your moment? What was the moment when you realized that your characters could die? Like, did you have like an oh shit moment in D&D?
Yes. It was basically, I was playing this Fire Genasi sorcerer Ash, who I played in. It was the first campaign I ever played, and I was like, and I created it a while ago, and like we continued, and it was playing in the Underdark.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it into a new game and everything, and it was a one-shot. Going through and everything, I didn't play him as properly as I should. He was more of a bully and I basically tried to like fireball a group. But Brian was a cleric, and I was a sorcerer, and I got my shit rolled because we were all evil. So basically, like I was dying either way. So just like, and I was trying to be like, oh, this one character that Matt's playing is a dick, and he basically counterspelled a cantrip while I was trying almost dead. So just like it was a lot of things to that. And initially, like I tried to fireball. I didn't care about the rest. It was more him that my character was like, fuck this guy, he's dying today.
Right.
So I cast the fireball and it hits everyone else. And everyone was pissed at me for obvious reasons. But it was just like, that was the only dick move, but I also didn't play that was one of the few times because I haven't played the character in a while. I was like, looking back, I was like, I didn't play it right. I should have just hey, Enoch, come with me. Let me talk to you. And stab.
Right. Nice.
But you live and you learn.
Absolutely. That's funny.
But I do have a story about my most epic death, and I believe you were there for that in a one-shot.
Was it the one recently? You could talk about that one.
Okay. Well, no, I'm talking the one where we were goblins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, tell everyone about that one. Let's go through, I mean, I know it was Brian's idea, so we got to give the credit to good old Brian Scharf.
Mr. Scharf.
The campaign we did is we started off with level 3 characters and went through a goblin cave and took care of a bunch of goblins. Then we had our other characters, which were level 1 goblins, to which our goblin group came back to the cave that our other characters had just massacred, just tore through awfully, just terribly ripped through this horde of goblins. So then we were the goblins, and we were like, we need to go get revenge and save and avenge our friends and family. And that's when I guess your epic death. So I'll let you take it from there.
All right. So basically, after our adventures we created, decimated them and everything, we're like, we're going to get a revenge. And then Brian did the one thing you should never do in our group, because it always fucking happens. Wamford will always burn. And pretty much I was the only one in the group who has never experienced a Wamford burn at the time.
I actually haven't either.
Oh, okay. Well,
we played in Wamford
because I decimated it with that move, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So I remember in Wamford, there's a apothecary that has demon ash. Yeah. Demon ash in D&D is basically the equivalent of C4.
Yeah.
And we grabbed everything from it because one Brian was like, oh, what town is it? Oh, and him joking around being like, oh, it's just Wamford.
He said it like early in the session too. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So in the end, in the back of my head, I'm like, I built a character to be like a firebug and everything, like fire.
Yeah, you're
as
a wizard,
goblin.
right?
Sorcerer.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the end, I was like, okay, fire. And literally like, once he said Wamford, I'm like, this fucking town's burning. It's burning. And so I was going through it and everything, and we got the C4 from the apothecary, and we planted it around the thing because Brian thought, oh, we'll be stealthy, go into adventures, kill them in their sleep, which he says that every time, and we never do that. We always just go balls to the walls in the most stupid way possible.
I was ready to have both of my characters in initiative and have us just literally fight ourselves pretty much, which would have been so funny.
Brian was too. But so we planted around and everything. Brian's like, okay, so what do you want to do? In my head, I'm just like, I don't fucking care. My character is crazy and a pyromaniac. So in the end, I walked up 15 feet away, and we had about 20 fireballs worth of demon ash, might I add. And that's how we described it, around this one in. So our characters that were the adventurers insta-died, because when 20 fireballs go off, you ain't walking away from that. Right. And pretty much the last thing he was describing is everyone else in the game basically they saw what I was doing, and they knew me very well enough where they're like, oh, this is bad, we're running. So you just see them running in the action sequence thing, and just behind him, I was insta-dead.
And I think we rolled to see where everyone was sitting at the table, and I think my Dragonborn sorcerer was sitting like right by the window, and I forgot which character just saw you walk up with the burning hands. What's kind of funny about that is, and I think my character would have realized this after, as we left the town and you died, was I had a bow and arrow, so I totally just could have lit an arrow on fire and blew it up that way. But I realized, Tom realized it, and I'm sure my character would have realized it as well, like after you committed suicide. But I was like, huh, actually this could have been avoided. So R.I.P. your goblin. That was funny. That technically was the first time I've had a character die, but I wasn't actively playing the character at the time. My goblin did run away, and action moving did out of there.
Goblins are funny in that way, because I remember once, like whenever the Reliably Chaotic players play goblins, or any of in our other groups as well play goblins, Brian forgets we're playing goblins, and this is the moment where we just lose all care, and everyone in the group becomes a player like me.
Right. Yeah, because that's like when you play. I mean, I'm sure there are outliers, and you can play like a sensible goblin. You know, they've been in campaigns, but when you think goblin, especially we were considered, I guess, the goblins that were attacking the town. So like when you play a goblin, you fight goblins all the time, and they're always depicted as these like out of control little creatures. So yeah, so that's what you do. You're just like, yeah.
And I just remember once that we were playing Storm Kings, and literally like we were playing three goblins, a kobold, and a ladrin, the seasonal one. I forget what it's called. In a Storm Kings. And literally, like, in the beginning town and everything, we get there and everything. We're looking around like, okay, we get to the general store and everything. And pretty much we look at each other and just go, all right, guys, the stereotypes are bad. We're trying to be better than this. We're going to be better than this. Take it all!
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just who we are when we play Goblins, where I remember once, that was red. I remember once we were also playing Goblins on the High Seas, which is also my proudest thing, that basically made Brian close the module, throw it away, and he improv the entire rest of the session, because we were goblin pirates that stole a small dinghy.
Okay.
And we were supposed to build on different ships, and where we would sneak on, at least that's what he thought.
Right. We
started combat as soon as we saw the other ship, even though the ship was 3 times the size of us, we had a harpoon gun, and literally my character was called Stunad. Tom, as an Italian man, what does Stunad mean?
To be honest, I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea. It's
okay.
Go ahead.
Stunad, from what I at least understand that someone told me,
I'm a terrible
is
Italian.
It's okay. I wasn't sure whether you know. Is basically idiot.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I was playing an idiot, and for some reason, I ended up being captain. So I was Captain Stunad. And my rousing speech right before we went into battle was, "Some of you may die." I turn around and go back into my cabin. And that, funny. I think, was my highest kill count in one fight, for the reason of I killed 15 of my own men. Yeah, because we shot the harpoon, went into the other ship, because Brian thought, we were going to sneak, because we wanted someone's hat. Not because of the ship, because we wanted his hat, and he was taunting us with the hat. So we shot the harpoon, went across, and literally I was like, "Men, go!" And they started running across the rope, going to the other ship. That's obviously not realizing, they're just going to cut it. And they fell, give or take about 15 feet into the water.
Yeah.
And most of them were dead. I think like 3 survived, and those were just player characters. And 1 NPC survived because he was about to go on the thing. And we literally chased down that boat for days, and then it docked, and they were like, "All right, we're going in, boys." And then we finally killed the captain at the end, and took his hat, and being like, we could steal the ship too.
Was this like a one shot, or was this like
it was a one shot?
Okay.
It was Goblins on the High Seas, which Brian has brought up before.
Oh, okay. And is that like, so for that type of a module, is it pre-generated characters too, or you just play goblins?
No, Brian homebrewed this.
Oh, he homebrewed the whole thing. Oh, okay.
Yes.
That sounds fun though. That's funny.
Yeah,
I like
was
playing
hysterical.
Goblin. Yeah,
great. And the greatest thing was, as soon as like 15 of my men died, Matt was he was going to betray me and basically do a mutiny anyway. He literally looks at me in the middle of the game, just confused, being like, "I was always going to betray you. I just was expecting it to be like 2 hours later." He started a mutiny, and I killed all these people within 15 minutes of starting the game.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny when like just immediately there's that one hole, like it's just amazing what people will find to figure out to like mess everything up. I'd say I know you had a couple of other stories, and maybe if we got time for like one more story.
All right. I'm going to do Okay, I'm gonna do our Frost Maiden one.
Okay.
Because I did that one.
The most prepared guest I've had with your
Yeah,
notes.
I know. I was nervous, so I was like, all right, here we go. I know it shouldn't be, but you know what? Just because no one's brought up Bevan and Tom knows who Bevan is and he can help me out if I start being long-winded with this.
That's fine.
Let's go with Bevan and how he became besties with the betrayer god.
Yeah. Go on.
When I say besties, I don't mean, he swore his loyalty to. I mean, the cloak serpent is in his head and he's asking him to read a bedtime story. And the cloak serpent just hates him and wondering, why did I want this man to be my champion? He's really desperate, apparently, in our game. The cloak serpent's just very desperate and doesn't have enough followers.
To be fair, I think you weren't the intended target, but go ahead, finish the story.
So how all this started was there was a campsite in the middle of the woods, fire crackling, warm food, the smell is amazing. And my character is Bevan, the monk whose brain just isn't quite right. Something's wrong with him where it's just like, what's a character that could best be described as Bevan in like media?
I can't think of a specific character, but mostly like you can just say the lights are on, but nobody's home most of the time. It's just, you're very,
it seems like he's been hit in the head one too many times.
CTE. I
don't
know. I don't think greater restoration can cure that, so we're stuck with you
can't fix stupid.
No.
But going through this and basically I'm like, this is amazing, smells great, and pretty much Brian and everyone was like, we ain't touching that. Like,
yeah,
that's probably cursed. And Bevan's just like, ooh, food.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hit the button this time, guys. Exactly. I just really wanted to hit that button because I was curious. And then I took some for the road. And Nicole did tell me that first time, all right, I let it slide. Second time, we're figuring out what bullshit is happening here. So I had, for weeks after that in the game, the cloak serpent was sending me dreams to learn and grow and trying to build me to be the perfect assassin champion or something like that.
Yeah.
But Bevan is too stupid to realize what's going on. So it's just like, learn. Oh, I'm going to read.
Yeah.
Because Bevan is one of those characters that's hard to describe. You kind of have to experience the Bevan.
He's really just, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's a super complex character because one, you gave Nicole a clean slate for your backstory and just went off the
I don't know my own backstory.
Which is
that's
hilarious.
how whammied I am.
I think it's like a fun way to, as long as the DM's cool with it, because some DMs might be like, get the hell out of here, make your own damn backstory, I got enough shit to do. But Nicole's a champion.
Basically had a minor, I think, like was a little like, no one's ever really given me this much freedom. I don't know what to do. And then she did something where it just like started to randomly generate things and stuff. Like, he's a father, he has kids.
Wait, no, I thought when we cast the legend lore, we found out those weren't his actual kids.
No, I know. His stepkids.
Stepkids.
Is what I meant.
All right. Because we found out a little bit about it.
Yeah, and also, like, apparently he was the champion of Tasha or something like that.
Something wild.
Yeah, like, and it was just like, oh, that's a high level something or other. And it's just like, hi, I'm Bevan.
Yeah. Love it. Love Bevan. Great. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Of course.
No problem.
It's been a long time coming. But why don't you plug whatever you got to plug the podcast for the folks at home.
All right. I play Craig on the Reliably Chaotic Podcast, and I recommend you listen because it's a barrel of fun because I get to be a monster, miniature size.
Yeah, I can attest. Even my wife has been listening, and she doesn't even play D&D, so she likes the story. Yeah, it's a great story. Well, thanks again, for me. I got some comedy dates. I do stand-up comedy, so go Instagram at Tom DeSillis Comedy. On Instagram is some of the best way you can find out about my shows. Follow me at T DeSillis Comedy on Twitter for updates on the show and other comedy shows. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you just shoot me an email at youhadtobethere@gmail.com. And last final announcements, the music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can find him at It's MJ Made on Instagram and SoundCloud. And my logo was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic Podcast, which you know all about now. Thanks again for listening. This has been You Had to Be There with Andrew Brown. Bye, everyone.
Bye.